Welcome to Apologetics and Prophecy, the official podcast of Calvary Solid Ground, a remnant church in Orangevale, California. I am Pastor Jed, and I will be your host as we bring you Bible studies and updates put through an apologetical and biblical lens to see just how close we are to the return of our Lord. Thank you for joining us today. Maranatha, everyone. So glad that you could join us for this Friday edition of Apologetics and Prophecy, where we are going to give you a prophecy update. And I'm telling you, it ain't easy to do with as fast as the news is coming in. So, but the theme for this week, and really I think has been a conversation that many of us have had, especially in light of some personal things going on in my life and my wife's life. We've been asking the question of, why are we still here? Why are we still here? We know that the rapture is a signless event, but as we see the signs of the 7-year tribulation period seemingly all around us, we are asking ourselves, it can't be much longer. So why are we still here? And just to let you know why we think that is because what are some of the signs that we know of in Matthew 24? Matthew 24, 4 through 8 says, "And Jesus answered and said to them, Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows," or as we know as birth pangs, meaning, when the closer you get to the birth, the contractions get closer together. And anybody who's been doing this as long as we've been doing it here could tell you that from 2020 on, it's been just one constant contraction. So the baby's about ready to give birth. That's why we ask ourselves, why are we still here? And then, of course, Timothy would remind us that in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, "But know this, in the last days, perilous times will come in the last days. And what are they going to look like? For men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, and from such people turn away." So we understand what, these signs that Jesus talked about and what Paul talked about, we see wholesale happening in our society. So we really could ask the question of why we are still here. Because, look at the stuff that's going on. This is an evolving thing that's been going on since October 7th. And that is the war in Israel. And Israel is God's timepiece. And when we see these things, we know time is short. Israel's war on 5 fronts. How Jewish state faces all-out conflict against its Middle Eastern enemies after killing hundreds in latest Hezbollah strikes as Lebanon accuses it of carrying out an extermination. Of course, your enemies are going to do that, right? They're going to use everything possible to keep themselves from getting pummeled the way that they are. But this is, it's already becoming old news. This is, this news cycle is changing on a daily basis. But just to kind of catch up since the last time we've done a prophecy update, Israel intensified the conflict in the Middle East to new levels today, killing more than 180 people in Lebanon. And it's in the latest attack, that number's gone up drastically since I even put this together yesterday afternoon. Since military officials declared a new phase of war against Hezbollah had begun last week. On Tuesday, Mossad is thought to have orchestrated one of the most psychologically damaging clandestine attacks in recent memory. In all memory, let's face it, injuring thousands of Hezbollah members with exploding pagers and radios across 2 days. And if you're still buying the concept that they managed to intercept all these devices and put explosives in each one, I got a bridge I'll sell you that's in West Sac. But yeah, they've got some kind of technology they're not telling us about that blew the batteries up, I believe. But hey, I could be wrong. But, whenever they come out, whatever narrative they come out with, an hour after something happens, don't believe it. Because there's no way you can know within an hour, right? And so, but then on Friday, the IDF delivered a punishing strike that eliminated a top Hezbollah commander along with 37 other militiamen and civilians before continuing aerial bombardments over the weekend and into this morning. And this week, it's been, they are literally bombing Hezbollah to smithereens. They are pounding. I've never seen videos of explosion after depot after. It's like, it is relentless what they are doing, and of course they have to do it because they're targeting weapons that are aimed towards them, and so that's what's happening, and it's it's pointing to the final scenario with Israel, and there's a reason why they're on the news cycle every day. And then this other story, too, IDF commanders urges readiness for possible Lebanon invasion amid Hezbollah conflicts. So there's this talking about a ground war. They're trying to push Hezbollah back on the other side of the Lahani River. They're actually talking about annexing all of that part of Lebanon and making that a no man's zone. To try to, like they did in the Golan Heights, because to keep Hezbollah's rockets away from the people and the families that live in the north that are evacuated from their homes. It makes sense, right? But this story says IDF Northern Commander urges readiness for potential Lebanon invasion amid escalating conflict with Hezbollah as Operation Northern Arrows intensifies. That's the name of the operation. It's a war. It's an operation during a war. People that are saying, oh, well, we don't want to see a war start in the Middle East. It's been going on since October 7th. Hamas started the war and Hezbollah joined in by firing rockets at Israel. So they are at war. And IDF Northern Commander Major General Yuri Gordon on Wednesday told his forces that we need to be very ready to go into action and invade Lebanon in the rising escalation against Hezbollah. Speaking to Brigade 7, he emphasized that their actions must change the security reality for Israel's 60,000 northern residents who've been evacuated from their homes for nearly a year. Meanwhile, all IDF political and defense officials have acknowledged that even in the event of a ground invasion, diplomacy will eventually need to solidify any long-term gains for the use of military force. So, and of course, just the latest update is that they're continuing to pound Israel. I guess Syria and there's some forces that have made their way into Lebanon, ground troops from different brigades that are all Iranian proxies, to actually, they're talking about invading Israel. But I don't know how they're going to do that, considering they're being wiped out relentlessly and they have no way to communicate with one another because Israel took that out. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But a lot of stuff is going on. And Netanyahu this morning spoke at the UN and gave a vision of two types of Middle East. And he even showed two pictures. One that was the curse with these countries that shows Syria, Iraq, and Iran at war with Israel. And then the blessing is where, Saudi Arabia and these other countries are involved in peace with Israel. And of course, that red line is what he was working on with Saudi Arabia before October 7th. And really the proxies, Hamas, is the reason why they invaded, was because the normalization that was coming between Saudi Arabia and Israel that they did not like. And so anyway, I just think it's interesting that he's using biblical terms to describe what's going on over there. And of course, we know how it ultimately all turns out, and I don't know if Netanyahu is aware of that. These people have Israel has even though they're in distress and they've been on the run, their military victories and their strength have given them a lot of pride. And we know that pride will have to be broken. And we know what it's going to take to break the nation of Israel's pride for them to realize that Jesus was their Messiah. And there will not be a kingdom until they realize that and call out upon his name. So lots to pray about. But anyway, what's happening? What's happening in the United States? Something extremely huge has happened during the week that led to something that just happened yesterday. And I believe the two are tied in together. And the first one is here. The senators have come forward and said Biden administration delaying bombs, tractors, helicopters from Israel. It says right here that it is far past time to transfer to Israel capabilities it needs to win the war. This was Senator Tom Cotton and Mitch McConnell wrote to the President Joe Biden. So they are still delaying bombs, tractors, helicopters from Israel that they need to finish this war. And they're doing it to put pressure on them to stop fighting against terrorism. And here's the letter that they wrote right here. And as you can see, it's talking about the Apache attack helicopters. These are helicopters that Israel has asked for a long time. The MK-84 bombs, they need to destroy the bunkers and especially the tunnels in the north. And then the D9 tractors they need to be able to clear the area out to bring troops in and bring even people back in afterwards. This is to clear out all the rubble. So they are really tying their hands. And a lot of people are saying, oh, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. Here, this is very interesting. This is a 2-minute video, and I'm sorry that it's you-know-who, but you need to understand what to show you how important this election is, towards Israel. America's friend is going to be a friend or foe, and we can see already what the current administration is doing because she admits it, and what she will plan if she gets into office. And so let's go ahead and roll this.
Is there a specific policy change as president that you would do in our helping of Israel?
We need to get this deal done, and we need to get it done immediately, and that is my position, and that is my policy. We need to get this deal done.
But in the way that we send weapons, in the way that we interact as their ally, are there specific policy changes?
Well, Eugene, for example, one of the things that we have done that I am entirely supportive of is the pause that we've put on the 2,000-pound bombs. And so there is some leverage that we have had and used. But ultimately, the thing that is going to unlock everything else in that region is getting this deal done. And I'm not going to disclose private conversations, but I will tell you I've had direct conversations with the Prime Minister, with the President of Israel, with Egyptian leaders, and with our allies. And I think we've made ourselves very clear this deal needs to get done in the best interest of everyone in the region, including getting those hostages out who, I mean, we saw the latest example of what happened with the 6 most recently, one of whom was an American citizen.
But what do you say to those that say that's not enough, that stopping the 2,000-pound bombs the one time wasn't enough, that this administration, your possible administration, has to do more?
Well, we are doing the work of putting the pressure on all parties involved to get the deal done. But let me be very clear also. I support Israel's ability to defend itself. And I support the need for Palestinians to have dignity, self-determination, and security as we move forward and get a two-state deal done. But right now, the thing we need to get done is this hostage deal and this ceasefire deal. We need a ceasefire. We need the hostage deal.
Yeah, notice how she said she's proud to have supported the withholding of weapons from Israel, something that they've had a deal. And now you have to understand that this was already okayed by Congress to give Israel these weapons. This has already been voted. This is already law, and they're purposely withholding weapons from Israel so she can finish a war against terrorists that kill babies, put them in ovens, and rape women. And she is proud of that, to push Israel into a deal, which is basically, you know what I mean. You know what we know. If a ceasefire to Israel's enemy is just a time for them to rearm and reload. And we know that. And they know that too. And because they're pro-Iranian, pro-Islam, it's Obama 2.0. They're pushing this stuff. And the two-state solution, they're going to continue to do it till we get this deal done, she says. Not just the deal to get the hostages home. That includes the whole two-state solution that we know is what's going to bring a curse upon America. So this election is extremely important. It's something to keep an eye on. But right after she said this, right after this interview, and right after and during that time after this interview, all of that happened the same day that they're in the UN, making a joint statement with all these nations for Israel for a 21-day ceasefire. What happens? What happens and this just happened yesterday, and it formed out of nothing and became a hurricane in no time. And that's Tropical Storm Helene's inland trek, producing catastrophic flooding and damaging winds. This is just the latest article that I was able to find right before I came to record this. Things could change between now and 4 p.m. when this prophecy update is broadcast. We're looking at 11 o'clock in the morning on Friday. And already I see that one of the dams in North Carolina is like at the brink of blowing up, and it's still raining. And so be in prayer for those people. But I think these things are connected, and I think Bill Koenig has done a good job showing us that they are. And it says Helene made landfall at 11:10 p.m. Eastern Daytime Thursday night, last night, about 10 miles southwest of Perry, Florida, as a Category 4, packing 140 mile per hour winds. The tropical storm is now centered 105 miles northeast of Atlanta and is tracking quickly northward at 32 miles an hour. Maximum sustained winds are 45 miles an hour, which is still a pretty big storm. Numerous flash flood warnings are ongoing, as shown by the green outlines on the radar map below. Several of the warnings this morning have been high-end flash flood emergencies in western North Carolina, including Asheville, upstate South Carolina, eastern Tennessee, southwest Virginia, and northern Georgia, including Atlanta. That means serious flooding impacts that have occurred in those areas. Record flood crests have been observed on multiple rivers in North Carolina, and this is where this dam is getting ready to blow up, including the Pigeon River and Canton French Broad River in Fletcher, and the Swannanoa River in Biltmore near Asheville. Rainfall totals have topped a foot in parts of Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina and South Carolina since Wednesday. The top total is nearly 30 inches in Busick, North Carolina. So that's a lot of rain, you guys, and a lot of infrastructure can't handle that. And I think it has to do with this. This thing was a 1 and increased to a 4 almost immediately after this came out. And this was the joint statement by the United States, Australia, Canada, European Union, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and the United Kingdom and Qatar to what? For an immediate ceasefire in the north from Israel, meaning Israel, stop what you're doing, stop your Operation Arrows, Northern Arrows, and let's just let diplomacy work itself out. Diplomacy hasn't worked with Hezbollah for 20 years. Why all of a sudden do you think that that's going to happen? No, it is, these are people that are friendly to Islam. They are friendly to Iran, and they do not care what happens. And so it shouldn't surprise us. And so what's the world doing? And so most of these other countries, they don't know what's going on in Israel because, as far as they know, Israel is the bad guy because their media, we have freedom of the press in the United States, but a lot of countries don't, like the UK. And this story shouldn't surprise us, that says that BBC told director of Nova Massacre film to not describe Hamas as terrorists. What? It was a price I was willing to pay so that the British public will be able to see these atrocities and decide if this is a terrorist organization or not. Burning babies in ovens, burning people trying to escape from the Nova Music Festival, burning them alive in their cars is not terrorism. I mean, I don't know. What do you mean? We have to decide for ourselves. Because we don't want to call Hamas a terrorist now. We wouldn't want people to think that they're the bad guys because we know Israel is. See, that's the way these things are going. They're controlling the narrative. And they can't even get their prepackaged narrative right to try to make them seem like they're friends of Israel, because listen to this video that just came out.
Immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
They're sausages. They're not even hostages. They're sausages. I don't know. I don't even really want to know what was on his mind that made him slip like that. I don't. Maybe he was thinking of breakfast, and it was still on his mind, and doesn't even care. He's just reading from a teleprompter, and they can't even get their narrative right in their lie and hypocrisy towards Israel. And so it shouldn't surprise us. But what's been going on while everybody is worried about what's happening with P. Diddy or Travis Kelce and his girlfriend, while the whole world is focused on those things, they're under the radar and nobody seems to be paying attention to, and that is the Sustainable Development Goals, the press release from there that is United Nations adopts groundbreaking pact for the future to transform global governance. It's UN 2.0, and they are actually wanting to get all these nations to agree to a global government, and they're pushing it and using the Sustainable Development Goals. Everything we've been telling you about the 2030 date is they were in the UN today putting it into. It says world leaders today adopted a pact for the future that includes a global digital compact, we'll get to that in a moment, and a declaration on future generations, brainwashing our youth. This pact is the culmination of an inclusive years-long process to adapt international cooperation to the realities of today and the challenges of tomorrow. The most wide-ranging international agreement in many years, covering entirely new areas as well on issues on which agreement has not been possible in decades. The pact aims above all to ensure that international institutions can deliver in the face of a world that has changed dramatically since they were created. As the Secretary General has said, we cannot create a future fit for our grandchildren with a system built by our grandparents. See, they always say we got to break down the old system, the Great Reset. That's what they keep saying. The entire pact is designed to turbocharge implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Another part says the Global Digital Compact, annexed to the pact, is the first comprehensive global framework for digital cooperation and AI governance. See, they want control of information. And how do we know? Just listen to their own words, what they said right here.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate to billions of people. This clear and present global threat demands clear and coordinated global action. Our policy brief on information integrity on digital platforms puts forward a framework for a concerned international response.
Boy, somebody doesn't seem real happy that there are alternative forms of information out there. Matter of fact, he seems kind of a little bitter. The fact that there are people out there that have an alternative opinion to the facts that are presented before them, and a matter of fact, altering the facts to form a narrative and political opinion with stuff like climate change and gender that we won't fall into. And so, but you know, these stories, we have stories to prove that they want to control the narrative, and that they are going to be successful in it. This article from Science Daily will show you that they're always accusing us of doing what they are doing. And here's a great example of it from this article right here. Climate Science, How a Believer Becomes a Skeptic. So the University of Southern California does this research, right? And it says in the research, a study of mostly climate believers shows that just how easily information and misinformation can blur people's sense of the truth. All it takes is repetition. You know, we've told you, you tell a lie loud enough and long enough, people will believe it. But they're accusing us, those that have an alternative to their narrative about climate change, when we show you that it's all a hoax and that the Bible tells us that we need to trust in the Bible, what the Bible says. Oh, you know, you guys are the ones. And if you keep telling people, you're going to get them to doubt the narrative of the Science Journal or Science Daily. Do you get it? In recent research published in the journal PLOS 1 USC, that's University of Southern California, an Australian, you got Australian, right? Researchers explored the powerful effect of repetition on people's belief. So they're saying it's because you and I spout the truth. An alternative narrative to their narrative is what getting people to stop believing in climate change. And we can't have that now. That would mess up our sustainable development goals. But you see, they keep pushing, they keep telling people that you're going to die in 10 years. The earth is going to blow up in 10 years. Oh, we're going to be drowned. The sea levels are rising. And you got pictures to prove that they're not rising. See, they're the ones. Trump's a racist. Trump's a racist. Trump's a racist. He's a Nazi. He's a Nazi. He's a threat to democracy. And now, should it surprise us? People are trying to kill him. Come on. And now they're blaming Iran. Oh, we sanctioned we put 2 arrest warrants out for 3 Iranians today, right? Blame Iran, and not the deep state, not the people that are really doing it. Come on. These guys, they're doing it. And then this came out. This is this is something we've known and talked about and been called conspiracy theorists and liars about. We're put into that camp, and that's this story. America First Legal releases complete internal Facebook onboarding documents used to train CDC employees on how to censor the American public. See, there is a committee in the Republican-controlled Congress that is getting all of this stuff brought out into the public, and of course the news. Mainstream media is not going to tell you this, right? Because they want you to buy, because remember, we don't want the repetition of truth to get people to stop believing in our controlled narrative. Do you see what's happening? It's crazy. And it says today, America First Legal released additional documents from its litigation against the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, exposing the complete onboarding documents Facebook used to train CDC employees on their government censorship portal to block free speech on COVID and vaccine misinformation. Many Americans remembered the unprecedented level of censorship by the Biden-Harris administration in 2021. Unelected public health officials constantly revised their guidance, leading to repeating something that was true a week ago could suddenly get an account suspended. The Biden-Harris administration's clumsy and heavy-handed attempts to keep up with the rapidly evolving information environment entailed by a global pandemic gave all Americans a stark reminder of why the First Amendment was listed first. And then in these documents, here are some of the things. Facebook created a new end-to-end workflow so that government officials could submit links for removal from Facebook. So the CDC would have a way to be able to, hey, that post has got to be removed. Facebook only gave access to the portal to approved government and law enforcement personnel, only those that were bought into the narrative, right? The new portal dramatically increased the efficiency of the censorship machine by allowing up to 20 links at a time to be referred for censoring. So, hey, this is happening wholesale. By moving the email chains to a Facebook-hosted portal, the new system also made it harder for organizations like AFL to provide oversight to individual censorship requests. And then each censorship request automatically generated a ticket number so the government could track if Facebook complied with its censorship demands. The documents further show how Facebook explained precisely what content would remove what it needed from CDC in order to censor certain narratives within the bounds of its community standards. And now what they do is Facebook has allowed you can post anything you want. None of my videos get taken down on Facebook, but you'll never find them. They're shadow banned. They have algorithms that just hide them and make you believe, oh yeah, it's out there. People can see it, and it's not true. Maybe your friends can see it, but anything public, then nobody can see it. And they'll make sure to hide it. And then here's one for just what we were talking about, just what Antonio Guterres was talking about. We don't want an alternative narrative because it's going to cause people to doubt the narrative that they're forcing upon you, which isn't true. And here's a story. This reeks with hypocrisy, and that is I think this is a CBS News. And it says Florida's new COVID booster guidance is straight up misinformation. Notice how they're using the word straight up misinformation, like they're from the talking in the hood. That's straight up, man. They're trying to, but the point is that it's, thank goodness for Florida's Surgeon General, who's actually telling some truth, putting some sanity and reason into the idea behind endless boosters that don't work. And what has become a pattern of spreading vaccine misinformation, the Florida Health Department is telling older Floridians and others at highest risk from COVID-19 to avoid most booster shots, saying they are potentially dangerous. Clinicians and scientists denounced the message as politically fueled scaremongering that also weakens efforts to protect against diseases like measles and whooping. That's not to do with measles and whooping cough. Everybody's already been vaccinated for those when we were born. And now you're talking about older people. Oh, you got to go get revaccinated. Oh, this is such a joke. A prominent Florida doctor expressed dismay that medical leaders in the state, leery of angering Governor Ron DeSantis, have been slow to counter anti-vaccine messages from Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo, who's a patriot, by the way. Thank goodness somebody with reason is speaking up in a role that's what he is there for. And I'm glad for this guy, including the latest COVID bulletin. Lapoto is DeSantis' appointee and top official at the state health department. The bulletin makes a number of false and unproven claims about the efficacy and safety of the mRNA-based COVID vaccines by Pfizer and Moderna, including that they could threaten the integrity of the human genome. That is a lie. That is a lie, because there is evidence to say that, but they silence it. The WHO, they've quieted that up. See, what's happening is that's what they're doing, and it shouldn't surprise us. And look what's happening in Japan. This is we'll just drop this quickly. Japan approves updated self-amplifying mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. We've been telling you about some of these things that they plan on doing with it. Now that the cat's out of the bag, now that they've got everybody on board with it, now that all the money is being spread out, they're going to continue to push newer technologies of these things that are even more dangerous than the first one, according in our opinion here at this. That's our opinion. Our opinion is that these things are not good for you and that you should not take them. But that's up to you. But we'll leave it right there. But Japan is continuing to move the needle down. And then what about other things that we see? The UN is pushing this global governance. Do we see things headed in that direction? I don't think it's going to matter. The election, whether it goes one way or another, might slow it down a little bit, but it's all headed out. We know where it's all going. Here in California, this is what they're doing here. California Digital ID, how to add your driver's license to Apple Wallet. I guess the newest Apple operating system allows you to put your ID, so you have a digital ID. And I guess it's being offered to 1.5 million Californians with iPhones. No, thank you. I don't want it. Nothing wrong with the real ID that they maybe jumped through a million hoops to get. Now they don't, that's no good. They want me to put it on my phone. No, thank you, because it'll be in a brain shape next. And then this other thing that happened locally, which is showing us that we're headed towards a one world government with digital ID and digital currency. We know it's going to start by this guaranteed income pilot for Sacramento County to give families $725 a month. So they're going to do guaranteed income already. That's what they're doing, a pilot program available to people that fall into certain parameters. They're having a public meeting on Tuesday at the Roberts Family Development Center. You can go get your free money. And I know a lot of people are going to line up for it. They don't say that they're not buying their votes. Every time there's an election year, there's more of these free stuff going out there to get people to vote for them. They figure, hey, if they're going to give me free money, I remember before I was a Christian, I lived in that lower income, kind of poverty level because of my drug addiction, and I'd have took free money anywhere it came from. I wouldn't carry out. Yeah, I'll check the box. I'll check Harris if I get some free money. You can have my ballot if you're going to give me $100, and if I can gather some more and get more money, sure, I'll do that. That's not a problem, and there are many people who will do that, and so and that's just because of human nature, and so. But one story that came out since our last update, which it's something that we knew, but now the cat's out of the bag, and that is Pope Francis crosses all red lines with claim all religions are a path to God. Well, that's nothing new. We've been pointing that out. We've had video proof of it since 2015. I mean, I've been showing these things on I've been doing prophecy updates since 2018, and we've come out and shown the statements that he's made many times. And so, but here's the quote that this is actually what he said. And it's right here. This was from a Catholic Twitter post. It says, Pope Francis to children in Singapore, all religions are paths to reach God. They are, to make a comparison, like different languages, different dialects to get there. But God is God for everyone. If you start to fight saying my religion is more important than yours, mine is true and yours isn't, which is Christianity. So Pope Francis is not a Christian, because Christianity is exclusive. There's only one way to God, and that's through Jesus. So he isn't saved by the Jesus he's believing in. Where will this lead us? There is only one God, and each of us has a language to arrive at God. Some are Sikh, Muslim, Hindu, Christians. They are different ways to God, which is a lie from the pit of hell. And if you are, there's so many people who want, well, my good, faithful Christian neighbor, Catholic neighbor has to be saved. You need to preach the gospel to them. You need to make sure that if they're following the words of this Pope and putting their faith and trust in him, they're not saved. Because the Catholic Church cannot save you, especially with their own words in their mouth. And of course, they'll come out and try to clean it up. But we know that it's just part of the last days apostasy, and we'll just continue to ask ourselves, why are we still here? Everything's here already. Lord, you got the world put in the right place for us to evacuate. Let's go. Let's get on with our program here. And then we have this interesting thing that I found. This thing right here from a government website. Palantir receives a $100 million Army contract for Maven Smart System expansion. Now, you're not aware of this. The military is now looking to streamline current Maven Smart System capabilities, which they already have. They have AI of their own, but they want to utilize advanced artificial intelligence and machine learning. Now, if you think for a moment that the military doesn't have AI more complex than what's available on your smartphone, then you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Because that is, you have to understand that they have AI. Most of all of Israel's war right now is done with AI. You saw what they did with the phones. You don't think a person was able to flick a switch and do that. No, it was a machine, an AI that actually could pinpoint where all these people were and send signals their way to cause explosions. That's the way all of their Patriot missiles, or their Arrow 1 and 2 and David Sling and their Iron Dome, all of that runs on artificial intelligence. It determines where the missile's going to go, and it shoots, and it works. And so AI is already active in the military. So just continue to keep your eyes out on that. And then this story is kind of interesting that came out. Millions of vehicles could be hacked and tracked thanks to a simple website bug. Researchers found a flaw in Kia web portal that let them track millions of cars, unlock doors, and start engines at will. The latest in a plague of web bugs that's affected a dozen car makers. When security researchers in the past found ways to hijack vehicles' internet-connected systems, their proof of concept tended to show, thankfully, that hacking car is hard. Exploits like the ones that hackers used to remotely take over a Chevy Impala in 2010 or a Jeep in 2015 took years to work to develop required ingenious tricks, reverse engineering obscure code in cars' telemetric units. But now they are able to do stuff like now they've advanced to the point where they can a simple website bug that can go into, a lot of these cars now have Wi-Fi in them, and so a bug can go from your phone into your car and take it over. It's a lot easier now. It might have took years before, but not anymore. That's where things are headed, and we know the Antichrist. This system is going to have to be where he can control everything, including your vehicles, your refrigerators, your everything. And then, of course, there was this one that came out. U.S. Capitol struck by massive dark web cyber attack. Personal info of thousands of congressional staffers leaked. Oh boy, personal information of more than 3,000 congressional staffers has been leaked across the dark web in a wide-ranging cyber attack on the Capitol, according to reports. Internet security firm Proton found over 1,800 passwords used by staffers in Congress available on the dark web through an investigation of exposed accounts among U.S. political staffers, according to the Washington Times. Now, very interesting, because now we know that they now know all the secrets through the emails and passwords that have been compromised by these different congressmen and senators. Now people can use that to blackmail them to vote according how they want. Seems like a deep state thing to me. But there's also this one that came out. China-linked hackers breach U.S. internet providers in new Salt Typhoon cyber attack. And so now the infrastructure is being attacked, and these are tied to entities in Beijing. Hackers linked to the Chinese government have broken into a handful of U.S. internet service providers in recent months in pursuit of sensitive information, according to people familiar with the matter. The hacking campaign, called Salt Typhoon by investigators, hasn't previously been publicly disclosed and is the latest of the series of incursions that U.S. investigators have linked to China in recent years. And of course, we talked about that when we had barges that are just all of a sudden turning into bridges, processing plants blowing up, refineries blowing up all over America. And we know that's because of cyber attacks. And they don't want you to tell. They'll say it's a gas leak or a software glitch. But then months after it happens, when it's quiet, a story like this comes out and says, oh, for years they've been doing this. And see, they got you. The narrative is being controlled. They want to control the AI so that the narrative is that you bought and believe everything that they tell you. And so it's pretty bad. And then this is kind of an interesting, sick story that we don't like to think of. And that is a whistleblower fired after making organ collection allegations. This is kind of a scary thing that you can't even imagine is going on, that these organizations would require people to do things that aren't even close to ethical. It says that Nicoletta Martin was fired from a job in the transplant industry after telling Congress a previous employer pressured staff to collect organs from a patient who was still alive. A former organ procurement worker who told Congress she was pressured to take organs from a person who was still alive was fired after her allegation was relayed during a recent hearing. So she comes out forward, and of course she's fired. Nicoletta Martin, who previously worked for an organ collection group called Kentucky Organ Donor Affiliates, said Tuesday that she had been fired by her most recent employer, which makes devices and helps preserve hearts, lungs, and livers during transplant. So she was told to do something extremely unethical without the permission of the donor to provide. They make money off of these things. So unfortunately, the sin of humanity is continuing to show itself in pretty sick and disturbing ways. And this shouldn't surprise us. We just broke this story. It hasn't even been a month, I think, since this story broke. And now look what's happening. Several arrested after woman dies in suicide pod. Well, what do you expect to happen to somebody that gets into a suicide pod? They're going to go on a virtual reality trip and wake up from it? It's a suicide pod. It blows my mind. Police in Switzerland made multiple arrests after a woman reportedly ended her life using a so-called suicide pod in apparently the first case of its kind. Police in the region said they arrested several persons on suspicion of inciting and aiding and abetting suicide after she died reportedly by using a pod made by the company Sarco on Monday. While assisted dying is legally protected in some circumstances in Switzerland, it is strictly regulated and the Sarco pod has encountered opposition. They recovered the device and body at the scene. The company behind the controversial pod says it can be solely operated by the person seeking to end their own life without medical supervision. So I don't know. They let the pods out there. What do you expect? They were tipped off by a law firm about a suicide involving the device. And so they went and why did they even let the device out there? Somebody had to build it. Somebody had to give them permission to put it there. And now it's illegal. That's really weird. But we knew that was. I'm glad at least they're fighting back against it. But this is where things are going, and you make a product, people are going to use it, and it's very unfortunate. And so, and then this was an interesting story to come out. It's like, what do they know that we don't know? Lawmakers seek to amend Constitution to allow for quick replacement of dead congressmen after mass casualty event. They never cease to surprise me. What do they know that we don't? Lee Holman asks. For those of you who might have missed it, the Washington Post is floating a disturbing scenario. And because it's the Washington Post, the veritable paper of record for the D.C. elitist globalist ruling class, we should not dismiss it. The Post article starts out this way. Imagine the unthinkable, a mass shooting of members of Congress that leaves a large swath of the country unrepresented and shifts the power of political power in Washington. In the current political environment, such an outbreak of violence is not as unthinkable as it used to be. According to a bipartisan collection of House members, the attempted assassination of members in Congress, a congressional baseball team practice in 2017, the violent attack on the U.S. Capitol in January 6, 2021. Nothing happened, okay? A dramatic spike in threats against members, and most recently a possible second assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump, highlight the need for Congress to ensure it can continue to govern in the aftermath of mass violence, they said. What do the intelligence operatives who control the Washington Post, a key member of the Mockingbird media going back decades, know that they are trying to tell us? That's exactly right. They're not, instead, they've just basically, our intelligence community is given into the fact that it's just going to happen. It's not a matter of if, just when we decide that it will happen. And so, and then, of course, on the deception front, we still have the deception front going on, and that is thousands see UFO hovering early over Mexican City in the middle of the day. And there's actual pictures of this thing that they saw. And we know UFOs are something that are being exposed as something that the government has been entertaining for many years. And now that they have organizations within Congress that are trying to expose it, the point is, though, is that we know what they are. They're demons, and they're deceiving, and they're demonic. And unfortunately, our government and our military industry has decided to play footsies with these demonic entities and the deceptions they bring, including the development of many of our software and technology that we have now have come from voices from outside of our dimension. And it shouldn't surprise us that we see, again, Senate Armed Services Committee to hold UFO hearings. And we see that right here. The Senate Armed Services Committee is looking to hold a UFO hearing. They've already done this, right? After the November election, says Christian Gilderbrand's office confirmed to The Hill. The hearing announcement follows an increase in sightings of what's officially known as unidentified. It's actually anomalous phenomenon. They say aerial, but the UAP is anomalous because they don't think that they come from another planet. They come from another dimension. They're interdimensional traveling. It has a lot to do with our time space. They figured it all out, by the way. I read a book that they actually scientifically on paper figured out how these things travel from one dimension to the other. And it's not a good thing to know. It's not something we need to replicate, which we see people doing and possibly using in the book of Revelation. And so it should concern us. But it says, including one purportedly near Malmstrom's Air Force Base in Montana. It would also come more than a year after an explosive House hearing in July 2024. So there was just this sighting near Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana just about a month ago. And it was, a lot of people saw it. And the Air Force has been quiet. Do you know they're the ones who have been they're the ones who have been responsible for a lot of the secrecy in the UAP. It's the Navy. The Navy has come out because their airmen have seen it, but the Air Force has not released any information. They have been tight-lipped, according to some whistleblowers. But now it's starting, because of the protections that Congress put into place last year, now the Air Force that have had most of the sightings are now coming out and saying, hey, look, we've seen them. And this is what happened when 3 former Pentagon officials testified about their experience. And so now they need to have another hearing. Now the Senate wants to have one and say, hey, because it's a risk to our thing, but we know where they're from. And it's really a risk to the deception that's coming upon the earth. And so, but the last story I want to bring up is about the apostasy in the church and a lot of people that are falling away from the faith. And a lot of you didn't even know. From our church, I asked on last Wednesday, if they knew who Stephen Lawson is, and nobody knew. So I found this article that I think will explain it to you. And we need to pray for our leaders. You need to pray for me. Anybody is susceptible to temptation, even those in the Reformed camp who think they'll persevere till the end. And it's not true, but it's very unfortunate. And what's unfortunate is how long this was going on while he was still behind the pulpit. Phil Johnson claims Dr. Steve Lawson was caught by girl's father and forced to confess inappropriate relationship. Thing about sin is you will hide it until it gets exposed. And this man was in sin for a long time until finally somebody exposed it. Executive Director of Grace to You and Grace Community Church, Elder Phil Johnson. Now, Steve Lawson used to teach at the Master's College, which is from Grace to You Church, which is John MacArthur's church. They are Calvinists, they are Reformed, and that's where he was teaching his classes at. And it says, shared more details regarding Dr. Stephen Lawson's moral failure on social media Wednesday, September 25th, in a post he has since deleted. Johnson, who is a friend of Lawson, clarified for his followers that Lawson did in fact inform the elders of his sin, but only after he was caught by the father of the woman he was having an inappropriate relationship with. Steve himself informed the elders, but only after the girl's father has confronted Steve and threatened exposure. This was not a noble confession of sin, Johnson wrote on X. Lawson was removed indefinitely from all ministry activities at Trinity Bible Church of Dallas last Thursday, September 19th, by the elders. Lawson was the church's lead pastor. In a statement released by Trinity Bible Church of Dallas elders, they informed the public that Lawson's removal was due to an inappropriate relationship that he had with a woman. In his post, Johnson addressed how the elders defined Lawson's moral failure. Inappropriate is too ambiguous, Johnson said, as if someone merely caught them holding hands. This was a 5-year relationship with a strong romantic overtones. Both parties insist no literal fornication was involved, but their tie to one another was adulterous in spirit, if not in fact. Providing more detail for his followers, Johnson said that Lawson is 73 and the woman he was having his inappropriate relationship with is in her late 20s. She is not a member of the church, Johnson added. I mean, go figure. It's not exactly Christian-like. He is still in denial, I believe, because you don't have a 5-year relationship with a young woman like this that is romantic in tones and you don't actually do the deed. I'm not buying that one bit when we've seen so much of this happen. In fact, she lives in a different state, nowhere close to any of the ministries Steve served. Then he said he doesn't believe any good would be served by exposing her identity to the public. Well, I beg to differ, but that's on them. They're a church and I'm glad that he stepped down, but he should have stepped down 5 years ago. He shouldn't have, know that though the Bible does say for your sin will surely find you out, and his sin found him. And it's very unfortunate because there's many people that trusted in his teaching. I've heard some of his teaching where he taught that pastors should have moral purity in their heart, and that's a requirement to be used by God. And so was he being used by God for the 5 years that he was in moral failure and not even practicing what he preaches? It's messing with a lot of people's theology today, and I hope that it turns out for the good in the end. But again, it's the apostasy that we've been told about, and we ask ourselves, why are we still here? But the Bible tells us plainly why we are still here. It says in 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 8 and 9, "But beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is 1 day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long suffering towards us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance." Why are we still here? Because God is long suffering. He wishes that one more would come to Christ. He wants people to come. He does not want them to be left behind for the judgment that is coming upon a Christ-rejecting world. Jesus put it to us this way on how we should handle those that ask that question. Why are we still here? Jesus would tell us, who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his master made ruler over his household, to give them food in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his master, when he comes, will find so doing. Assuredly, I say to you that he will make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant says in his heart, my master is delaying his coming, and begins to beat his fellow servants and eat and drink with the drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he is not looking for him, and at an hour that he is not aware of. We are to be looking for the return of the Lord, but we are to be about his business. And we can ask that question. There's nothing wrong with that. When we get into the depth of an unexplainable trial that you find yourself in, like me and my wife found ourselves in recently with a loved one, tragedy struck our family, and we had to, we ask ourselves, why are we still here? And we can start to have that woe is me attitude. But we have to remember that God is long suffering, and that he wants us about his business, looking up, knowing that our redemption draws near, and reminding people that might even be watching this show that have never placed their faith and trust in Christ, that you need to place your faith and trust in Christ today. It is adamant that you see that your sin was placed upon Jesus when he died on a cross in agony, that he paid the price that you cannot pay for your sins. When he gave up the ghost, he said, "It is finished." That means your sin was paid in full. And God proved to us that that debt was paid by rising him again from the dead. And he ever lives to make intercession for you. And all that he asks to receive that free gift of salvation is to place your faith and trust in him. You need to do it today because time is short. We asked the question, why are we still here? But the point is that we're still here because you need to get saved. That last person is going to receive Jesus. And at that moment, in a twinkling of an eye, we're out of here. But until that time, we need to be about the Father's business. But it doesn't mean that we don't have our hand on the plow, one hand on the plow, one eye on the furrow, and one eye up, knowing that the Lord is coming back at any moment. So I want to thank you for watching today. Keep your eyes up. News is going to change on a daily basis. And we'll see you next time here at Apologetics and Prophecy. Have a great weekend, and Maranatha. If you have been blessed by this podcast, please subscribe and share to help get the word out in these last days. If you'd like more information or to contact us, please go to calvarysolidground.com. God bless you, and see you next time on Apologetics and Prophecy.